Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Multifamily Chronicles podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Danila. This is episode number 7. And on episode number 7, I have a very special guest. My guest today is Tony Sousa. Tony is a regional maintenance with Embrey Management based in San Antonio, Texas. Welcome to the show, Tony.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. I think you said regional maintenance. I wish I was good at regional maintenance, but regional manager with Embrey. But I'm really happy to be here, and I know you're thinking maintenance because that's the world you're in. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you for correcting me. Definitely, for the record, Tony is not a regional maintenance. He is.
I'm not. So don't call me or hire me for that position.
So, Tony, let's start by introducing yourself to the audience. What would you like to share with the audience about yourself, about your background, things you're passionate about?
Yeah, well, hey, everybody. I'm Tony, Tony Sousa. I work with Embrey Management here in San Antonio, Texas. I'm a West Coaster, so I grew up in California and lived much of my life there, went to school there, studied there, got started in the industry there. Had an interesting sort of background prior to multifamily, some in the arts as well. So I think have some different skills and talents in my current role. I know you have a different background than multifamily as well, and all of that contributes, I think, hopefully to who we are today and the value we give our companies and the value we give our teams. So passionate about people, passionate about culture, passionate about what we do. Love real estate. And yeah, I just feel fortunate to be in the position I am.
Tony, my first question for you is, everybody talks about the Great Resignation, right? So this is definitely a hot topic. Reason why I invite people like you in executive roles is really to catch different angles and different perspectives on different issues, right? I will say there maintenance specifics for the most part, but sometimes they're not just maintenance specifics, they're industry general industry specific. So let's start with the Great Resignation, right? What's your take on it? How did we get here, and then where do we go from here? How do we overcome this challenge?
Well, it's an interesting road that has taken us here. I think the pandemic has obviously accelerated individuals' thoughts about what's important to them, what careers they want, what jobs they like, the monetary compensation that they think is fair for what they do. And so the Great Resignation, as they're calling it, is a real thing. I think some companies are facing a tidal wave greater than others. I think that has much to do with how they handled their people and their culture and throughout the pandemic. So I think those companies and supervisors, even more specifically, who were very people and human centric in the midst of a scary time in our world, I think they're seeing less of transition than those companies that were maybe more callous or focused on just sort of protecting their liabilities as a company, as opposed to really thinking about the people. I think those companies are having much more transition than the latter. Your question, how do we fix this? Well, let me get my sort of magic wand out and utilize it. There's no easy fix, and ultimately I think companies are having to design and rethink who they are. I think all companies are having to do that post-pandemic and define who they are. And then not only define what their core principles and values are, they have to find a way to tell the world about them. And the best way to do that is through, in my personal opinion, is through your employees. Your employees, if they love where they work, they will tell everybody about it. Those are the best candidates that I get. That are referred to us and to our portfolio and to Embrey. They come to us with great excitement because they've heard wonderful things. And for me, I have to evaluate timing and skill set and make sure that it's the right fit. But those are the best candidates to get. So companies really have to think about how to get this message of who they are, what their culture is, and what they do best out to the world. And some are doing it better than others.
Absolutely. You did mention something. You said something about the message, right? And how the message is getting out to the public, right? To the target audience. Now, I think that, it's also important to talk about not just getting the message, but then the part that comes after getting the message is right. Like, how do we walk that message? How do we
Yep.
turn the message into reality?
Right.
And what's your take on this? What's your experience with actually, a walking culture? I will name it, or a living culture.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great question because, and I'll tell you firsthand, a lot of people I know through social media, here locally, through networking events, and people that know of me and I know of them. But I'll use the example of people that know of Embrey and know of me, and have high expectations both of Embrey and of me based on what they've heard. My job as a regional and working with my teams, and of course alongside with Embrey, is to deliver on uh, expectation, and sometimes that's not easy, and everybody has sort of a different view of things. But I'm speaking to those who think very positively of your organization or of you or of your portfolio or of your teams. I think there's a greater responsibility on those companies and those people to make sure that they sort of fulfill either what the perception is or what the expectation is. And more, I'm fortunate that people reach out to me interested in being a part of what we're doing here, and I feel the burden of responsibility. It's a good burden, but it is definitely a burden of responsibility. So I feel the weight of that. And frankly, when we don't meet some of those expectations, and it happens, it definitely humbles me, and it allows me to go back with my teams to say, how can we better execute and deliver on the brand promise that is to be a part of Embrey Management, or a part of my portfolio, or a part of their team or their property. And so we really have to evaluate how we go about doing things all the time. And I think taking that approach of consistent evaluation of our processes, our culture, and our execution only makes you better.
It's very interesting that you brought this point up, right? And the point being is people reach out to you because they see on social media, they see on LinkedIn,
Right.
they want to become a part of your culture, or just become a part of your team. And that comes with a lot of responsibility, right? Because you definitely got to meet those expectations. I actually do have a similar experience to where actually many people reach out to me all the time. I'll say they're looking for the next best thing for them, and based on the company size and the needs that we had at a company, I'm not always able to come and say, hey, this is an opportunity for you. We're just not large enough to absorb all these people that are coming my way. So the next thing that I do, I refer them to friends and connections in the industry. So, but that comes with responsibility too, because I wouldn't, I would never refer someone that I never met in my life. Even if I met them, I would never refer them to a company that I think it's not a great company, right? People don't really have great experiences out there. So it's definitely a huge responsibility for us, for people like you and I in our positions to make sure that these people land in a place that treats them well.
But and what I'll add to that, because it's a great point, and yes, I'm probably being a bit modest, and so are you. My direct message inbox is often full of people that want to just talk or pitch their business, or I've even had the extent, and you probably have as well, people asking me to be their mentor that don't work for me, and I am incredibly flattered and humbled by those types of messages. I also share with you only 24 hours in a day, and a busy day job, and I have a family, as you probably know, and so there's a lot to that. But the bigger point, I think, where we're successful at essentially growing our pipeline, and our companies have done a really good job of that as well, where other companies and individuals can grow their pipeline and when they go back to thinking about how to attract talent was, I think, the origin of some of our discussions during the Great Recession. It's about reputation. And so you have to be really mindful, not only about the message, because, over the last 2 years, there's been a lot of messaging, right? Whether it be political messaging or corporate messaging. Okay, messaging is messaging, but delivering on that message, right, is essentially your reputation, because people will tell other people about you when they've had a great experience at your company or in your portfolio or at your properties. They will also tell a lot of people if they haven't. And so that's really important. So I think companies that want to continue to build need to not only get their message out, that's one component of it. That's really kind of the marketing component of all of this. But the bread and butter and the day-to-day work, which, I know some people will ask me, well, you're out there on LinkedIn all the time, you're a marketing guy and branding guy. And it's not really about that as much as it is, those who I believe work with me on a day-to-day basis know that I'm the first guy to pick up your call. I'm the quickest guy on text to get back to you when you need me. My job as a regional manager, as I see it, and I've said this before, is a support job. My job is to respond to you, give you the tools and resources, or clear out any red tape or bureaucracy or debris in your way. That is my main job. And if I am not doing that job very well, then so be it. Look for other opportunities. And it's not that I want you to go anywhere. And that leads me to my other point. I don't want to, totally hijack this. Is some people, even in this Great Resignation, some people have asked me, well, are you worried about your top talent leaving or getting, sort of other great companies coming at them to steal them? I don't take a second in a day to think about that. And I don't say that arrogantly. I feel very confidently here at Embrey that we give them what most employees want. And those are some simple things. So we trust them upon hiring them. We give them autonomy to do their job. We also give them the tools and support to do their job successfully. And we pay them fairly. And so I think when you're doing some of those basic things, you don't have to lose sleep that your people are going to leave you. But if you're not doing those basic things, then you should be losing some sleep, and you should be recalibrating and rethinking your strategy.
Yeah, I think you and I both are on the same page, and this is not some complicated philosophy that we're talking about here. It's basically about understanding human behavior, and it's basically about doing the right thing, right? Just understand
all the time, in every situation.
I will tell you, in all honesty, that probably my main thing, my main fascination when it comes to what I do for work is really understanding people, where they're coming from, and trying to meet their expectations is more than the technical part, right? Because I'm in maintenance. That's second concern. Like it does not concern me. I don't lose sleep over that. But I'm very passionate about understanding what the real needs are for individuals. And I'm a firm believer in you should be treating people the way they want to be treated. Because people, we have the saying, treat people like you want to be treated. Well, that might be true, but not everybody wants to be treated like you and I want to be treated, right?
Right.
Just because everybody's different. So
right.
that piece of trying to understand the individual, like what they have going on in their life, taking a few minutes to understand, what family they have at home, what challenges they have, because we say, well, this is business, I heard this so many times, it's business and you got to leave it at the door. You don't, because it's part of your life. Just like work is part of your life, your family is part of your life. You can't just leave that at the door. It's part of you. You bring it with you. And if that thing is not going well at home, let's see how we can help you out. Let's see how we could support you, because if you're going to do better at home, you're going to improve that situation, you're going to do better work too. It's all interconnected. It's all hand in hand.
And I'll tell you, and I think where companies and supervisors and even sometimes executives, this takes work. This is not easy. This is not a puzzle that's easily solvable. And the challenge of this puzzle, as you well know, and you just very well articulated it, is everyone's different, right? So this is everybody has a different puzzle to solve, and I think hiring managers and supervisors and leaders, those who are really good at doing this, like yourself, and I'd like to think that I'm getting better at this, become more and more successful as you really understand who you're bringing on board. Now, it all starts in the hiring process and understanding, is this the person with the right fundamental skill set, not only just skill set, but emotional skill set that can work well on this team. And if so, we go down this road of round after round, sometimes of interviewing. And I think the great companies that are out there, from the Southwest Airlines to the Chick-fil-A's of the world, understand that it's in the hiring process. And then it goes to the training process, which is a part of the ultimate process. But that hiring process for companies and individuals to do that in a very sort of robotic or conventional or old school way, or a very scripted, a contrived process, they're missing the whole process that's relevant today. Today, there's so much going on in post-pandemic mental health, and so many other things play into this into this evaluation of who you're bringing on board. And you have to have a firm understanding of who you are first as a leader, and how you work with individuals. Now, yes, and you're right 100%, you have to adapt to them. They don't have to adapt to you. And that actually makes you, I think, a better human, but a better leader and a better supervisor, to be able to adapt yourself to all these different folks. And some people, and too, your peer colleagues will come to you and say, that's a whole bunch of work, and I don't have time for all of that. Well, that's okay. You don't have to spend the time, but I'll tell you, you're going to see the negative results in the short term, the midterm, and the long term, that I'm willing to put in early, that we'll see the results in short, mid, and long term. So we're on the same page.
Yeah, I believe, you're making another great point. The great point being is that, yes, it's a lot of work at the very beginning, but remember, it's all about doing the right thing. And many times, very, very often, doing the right thing is not what's convenient, and it's not easy. It's
usually the opposite.
It's not easy. It's super hard, right? And we as humans, we're built that way. We're trying to find the easy way out. The reality is that there's no easy way. There's not an easy way. You have to put in the time. You have to put in the work. When it comes to building a loyalty amongst your team members, you have to spend the time. There's no way around it. This is something I used to say: you cannot outsource or delegate. You have to do it in person. When it comes to your team, you can outsource, you can delegate. There's just no way around it. Okay. And if you try to do that, the results will be, seen. Like you're going to have to deal with a lot of ugly situations where, just people would not feel value and would not want to stick around.
And in those ugly situations, that on maintenance, it can get really ugly, just from sewer lines to you name it, right? But when they see you physically and literally, roll up your sleeves to help them, that's when the bond of relationship continues to strengthen, right? And they say, okay, well, this guy talked a big game in the interview. He said he had my back, and he said he's going to be there for when I need him. And then that opportunity will arise, and it usually arises, pretty quickly in this business. There's always something that will arise, and they either consciously or subconsciously are watching you as a hiring manager, as a supervisor, as an executive, to say, are you going to make good on that promise that you made to me, in that interview process? And if you do, or at least you give your best effort to be there to support, that bond and that relationship continues to grow. And if you do that over time and with frequency, that relationship becomes very, very, very strong. And that's to the point I was making. You don't have to lose sleep that people are going to be leaving you, because that human bond, that professional bond that you'll have with those individuals, why would they want to go anywhere else if they're supported, fairly compensated, and have all the tools they need for their job? They're not asking for much more than that. I'm not asking for much more than that, and neither are you.
It's absolutely right. So it really goes back to the basics. This is not, it's really not a science. It's not, something, a philosophical conversation. When you think about, there's very, very, very basic things and very basic solutions to all those, challenges that we have. One of the reasons for, us as an industry experiencing a very high, turnover rate, or I guess, higher comparing with other industry, is employee burnout, right? Especially in maintenance, we've seen this all the time, right? Tony, in your experience, right, what would be a way, or what would you think of a few ways to actually avoid, or just have your team members experience less burnout?
Well, I can't speak as a technician. I can only speak, obviously, on the office and the leadership side. That's what I will speak to. I think it has some to also do with my background. We spoke about that a little bit, about really appreciating hard work, labor, and understanding not everybody is willing to do it, and capable as well, because some of the work done on the maintenance side is not easy. And I think what can sometimes happen in the leadership side, especially on the office side, is we can take for granted our maintenance team, our supervisors, our porters, our housekeepers, our assistant technicians, our maid ready individuals. And we can we can almost lullaby ourselves into this endless, thankless demand of work orders, maid ready work orders. And so we, on the management office side, and I try to be very conscious of this every time I make a site visit on a daily basis, is to go out of my way to thank them for specific jobs they do, look them in the eye as humans, and tell them thank you. And we all have a different role to play, and you're playing your role well. And I hope to do the same for you. And I think also being mindful, you talked about burnout, which essentially is sort of emotional and physical. The physical burnout, I think, is more manageable for those on the maintenance side. I think they can handle the physicality of the job. I think when I think of burnout, I think of more of emotional burnout. And when your tank is empty, it often means, in relationship, both personal and I think in professional, it means that you have not been filled up in a way that means something to you. Some people like great gratitude and awards in front of people. Some people like private thank yous and appreciations of work. And ultimately, I think sometimes executives and office leadership forgets and takes for granted, again, our maintenance teams. And that has been my observation over the years, that we take them for granted. We don't appreciate them in the same way we do sometimes our office staff, because they do, quote unquote, dirtier jobs or tougher jobs. And we forget they're human like everyone else. They just happen to do a different job, and they need the same praise and the same support, and the occasional pat on the back, and the lunch and the dinners and the thank yous that everyone else gets. And I think when you appreciate those individuals, the housekeepers, the porters, it goes a long way. And frankly, I've had pretty limited turnover over the last couple of years in those positions, is because they know my name, I know their name, I know some of their life, I know a few of their kids' names. I ask them about how football season's going, things like that. And I think as humans and as people, caring about one another goes a long way. But it takes work, and you actually genuinely have to care about people. And you have to look yourself in the mirror as a leader in any industry and say, do I really care about these people? And if your answer is no, find something else to do. But if your answer is yes, find ways to show that you are. And don't just expect the work to be done. Be grateful for the work that is done.
It's great. I'm picking up on a team, right? In our conversation, it all goes back to individual and individualization, right? So blanket everything doesn't work, right? And it doesn't work for a good reason, because we're all different. Like we all have different needs. And this brings me back into our next, I guess, topic. And that's training. I feel very strongly about training needing to be individualized, right? Again, we're all very familiar with, with the required training in the industry, which is, for the most part, your fair housing, your preventing sexual harassment, and a couple of other, things that everybody has to have. There's no disagreement there on my end. They all have to happen. But then when it comes to technicians, when it comes to maintenance, when it comes to the technical part of the business, I really think that we should have individual training. That's just my thought. There are a couple of others that I have, but I'd like to just kind of take your take on it. I know it's not really your area of expertise because as we established at right after the beginning, you're not a maintenance.
Not.
Yeah, but how would you see some effective methods of training for your teammates on a maintenance side?
Well, I think you raised some good points, and not a lot of people know, but I used to be a training manager, a regional training manager. So I was in the training departments, and that was both on the office, and obviously I didn't have the expertise to train on the maintenance side, but helped work together with putting structure and formats together. And I agree. All training, ultimately, you have to have sort of broad training on some of the major liability topics of the day. But ultimately, I think training needs to be sort of customized and created around the individual. Now, for someone like you, that you're not going to come in and train any of the basic components of maintenance, but I think that comes down to the trainer and the supervisor understanding who they have on their team. What do they already have sort of an expertise in and a foundational skill set? And let's not spend a lot of time there, but some of the other areas, whether it be customer service or technical training needed for certain appliance repairs or HVAC training, really spend your time, because we all have a limited amount of time. So spend your training hours being very specific to what the needs are of the associate, whether it be a maintenance technician or whether it be in the office. I agree with you, and I think most trainers, given sort of all the time in the world, or at least the ability to get it all done, would agree, or at least the good ones, that you really have to target your training towards the individual, not the individual has to sort of adapt to our training program. We need to adapt ourselves and have a program in place, but adapt to the individuals we're bringing on board so that they can get up to speed as quickly as they possibly can to our expectations.
Yeah, I really think that individualized training is really the key of effective training, right? We could throw training at people, as much as we want. If it's not really based on, I guess, the business needs, and on one end, and on the other end, on the individual's needs, right? What makes them thrive? Which areas they do believe that they need to be better at. They want to improve. They want to learn more, versus us deciding for them what they need to be learning.
And I'll double down on that too, right? So whether it be office or technician, you pinpoint the training that's needed for these individuals. You help them get better in an area that they need to get better in. They become more confident and they appreciate you giving skill sets to them that they didn't have. And so then they're even drawn more into your program, into your leadership. They buy in further, they're thankful, and they want to learn and grow more. And so, like the theme of today has been, it's not complicated, but it takes work. And it takes intentionality, right, is a good word for this. And so when you're doing that with intention, whether it be training or leading or whatever you may be doing with intention, you're going to be successful. But it takes work, it takes thoughtfulness and a strategy to go about it.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with that more. We've been covering I guess us as managers, what our responsibilities are to our teams. And really, we didn't say it, but I'm just gonna say it out loud right here. When you're in a management position, you don't really have people working for you. You work for your people. Like literally, you do work for them. And I think that's it's been a misconception, right? Thinking that, hey, I got promoted to a management position. I'm a maintenance supervisor now, so I'm just gonna have a bunch of people, doing work for me. That's truly not the case. I'm sure that goes the same way, in any management position, right? And you and I have been talking about building, like being supportive of our team members, right? Supporting our team members, like we as an individual, but also a support system that we need to have in place. It does not consist of just one person, right? It's a whole support system, like it's a whole world out there of support that our teams need to be successful. I wanted to see what's your experience with this, and if you have any specifics on the maintenance side, like what things that you've noticed in the past or in your current position of being successful at supporting teams in the field. What's your experience with that, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, support is not just coming from the direct suit, right? That's a big part of it. And I think their experience has much to do with their supervisor and their experience with their supervisor. But companies, and most companies are large enough to where you have multi-layers of support opportunities or support touch point opportunities. And that has some to do with office leadership, maintenance leadership, and you also have opportunities for sister properties or other sort of peer maintenance supervisors or peer technicians to be able to come in there and mentor as a supporting tool as well. I also think obviously, support and training departments need to play their role at a higher role, and then help facilitate those on the ground or in a peer capacity to be able to sort of be a part of that supporting program. So it's all support. And I think you're not where you're at, or I'm not where I'm at, if I didn't have the support and love, not only of sort of my professional family, but obviously also my personal family as well. So support is a huge part of life. And if you feel you don't have it, frankly, I think you get scared, you get defensive, you worry, you watch your back, there's a paranoia probably about that if you don't have support. And for those who don't have support professionally or personally, that's a really difficult position to be in. I've been in both. You've probably been in both. Fortunately, personally, I've had a great support system through family and both mother and father and grandfather and grandmothers, but also my wife and children they think dad is Superman. And so when they think of that, you then become that. And I think if your manager thinks that of their new hires, you also strive to try to meet that expectation.
You're absolutely right. And I think everything really starts at home for all of us. The type of work that you and I do, without having that support at home, we can't really be successful. We can't really get too far. And just having someone at home understanding what you're going through on a daily basis, the demands of the job, it makes all the difference in the world. Like
it does.
It makes or breaks a career, literally.
It does. And I'll tell you, even now as we speak, I have team members and a team member going through some things, and having those heart-to-heart conversations with those individuals, not only for me continue to humble me to understand that my team is going through things that sometimes I know about and sometimes I don't, but also allowing me as a supervisor and as a human being to tell them it's okay to have a lousy mental day, right? Or a lousy emotional day because you're going through something pretty big. And that's okay with me as your supervisor, right? Let's not line up those days to be too many to where it starts affecting the job. But you know what? You didn't have a great day today and your head was fuzzy and you had a hard time focusing. That's okay with me because of the magnitude of what you're dealing with. That's okay. I support you. And if you need to take a day or two as needed to make sure you're right, because if you're not right here and right here, it's going to be really hard to be excellent at your job. And I know that, that, but I think some leaders don't even articulate that enough to them. It takes some emotional vulnerability to tell your managers that it's okay to take a day, and it's okay not to be excellent today or fuzzy today. That's okay. I'd like to think every single day of my 15 plus year career in this business, I've been super sharp. That would be a lie. And for me to tell that story, to a live audience now, but also to my employees and team members, they appreciate the authenticity and the vulnerability and the honesty, and it allows them to be human. And when they're allowed to be human and make mistakes, they actually learn from them, and they become a better human, in my experience.
Yeah, you said human throughout our conversation several times, and I think this is what our industry, the society in general, needs some more. Just us being who we are, who we really are, tearing down those walls that are between us and others, and literally instead, trying to build those walls around us, like literally just tearing them down and just expose ourselves for who we really are. You don't have to filter all of your emotions. You don't have to be a robot. You don't have to it doesn't make you a better person, a better human. Like just being yourself really gives people confidence that or people around you, that they could be themselves also. And I think it makes for a great success story.
I agree. Vulnerability is strength. I've said that before. I've had to learn that as an adult, because we are, I think, in cultures and different countries, we learn, what's appropriate norms and where to put walls and where to protect yourself. And not everybody has some people come from very dysfunctional environments growing up. And so I think just being really mindful that our people are allowed to be who they are and supportive of that. At the same time, having that conversation that as a supervisor, my job is to hold you accountable to the job as well. And so we'll do that, but we could do both. We could support you as a human being and your mental health, but we could also hold you accountable to your job. And if you do a great job, we'll go out of our way to say thank you. If you're not meeting performance, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about why and how to get you there. And obviously, if it's not the right fit in time, hopefully it's a mutual decision. But I think we need more of that, especially post-pandemic. We had mental health issues in this country prior to the pandemic. Unfortunately, the pandemic, I think, is now starting to show its ugly head of some of the ramifications of some policies and also some of the things that happened over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it definitely does. We just need to do better. We could do better, and we could be better. Again, just by showing like you said, compassion, kindness.
And I'll tell you, I know we're LinkedIn friends. A couple of years ago, probably early pandemic, I realized what gets the most engagement, and then this because you actually do a really good job of this. What gets the most engagement on your content or your posts is not glossy marketing photos of your properties sometimes, although those are beautiful, don't get me wrong. But what gets the most raw engagement, and I find just people are just gravitate to these types of posts or content, is the most authentic ones. When I tell people a little bit about my life or a challenge one of my children have had, or put on showcase my beautiful wife and as a strong woman, like that. That gets the most engagement, and I'm an observer. I'm a learner in life, and I think like you, and so I see that, and what it tells me is that people aren't getting enough of that, either at their day job or at home, and so they're looking for outlets and channels of people like maybe you and I and others that are willing and courageous enough to be vulnerable and allow people to see a little window into their life. And we find this balance of, TMI, too much information, right? It's sort of somewhere in between, right? Not enough information and too much. Usually the best, I think the best posts and content and messages somewhere in between is just enough to let you know that I'm human and I have struggles and my family has struggles as well. And we're not perfect, but at the same time, I'm not going to try to sell you on all these fancy things and fancy photos and my life's perfect. I never understood that in business, when I think you're expected to answer all the time when someone asks, how are you? You have to automatically, without even thinking or tapping into your heart or emotion, say, I'm good, when you're not. And so I think hopefully in time that's starting to go away. At the same time, you don't want to tell everyone your problems. You have to sort of pick and choose who you talk to. But I think it's okay. If you're not doing good, your body language will show that you're not doing good before you say, even in words, that I'm doing good. And those, I think, managers and leaders that are really connected to their staff will realize, regardless of what their words say, maybe they need some additional TLC or some attention, and maybe just a simple conversation to find out what's going on.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Tony. A lot of the things are into what hasn't been said than in just what has been said, because again, we grew up in this type of culture where we're not to share our issues with our supervisors, like we're not to tell anything, because that might be seen or interpreted as a sign of weakness. And things are changing. I'm definitely seeing an improvement at all levels in society. I'm super hopeful about the direction we're going into, and all the challenges that we've been talking about on our conversation today. I only see them as just opportunities. They're opportunities for us to do better, to be better, and just to create to leave a better world to those that are coming behind us. I think that's if I had to say as what did I take most out of this conversation, is that there's a lot of positivity. This is not a negative point where we're in. It's definitely a point where there's just a incredible amount of opportunity. It's what we're gonna do with it, right?
And that's always the question. So I'm excited for the future and what it has to hold for us.
Tony, unfortunately, we're approaching the end of the conversation, right? We try to keep it in 30 minutes, about 30-ish. In closing, I'd like to give you the opportunity to share something with the audience, something you haven't shared, whether it's how they could reach out to you, whether it's something about about your company, some great things that are going on out there, whatever you like to say in closing.
Well, I just want to double down on, I think, on what you just said. I think despite the challenges that we see, or if you watch your local news or national news, you would think that the world's going to hell in a handbasket. But I think if you're living life aware and listening and watching and seeing your teams and the people around you, there's ample opportunity to make differences. And those sometimes little differences that you make go a long way for those individuals. And hopefully, if anyone listens to our conversation today, they can be encouraged or inspired in some ways to make a difference in their job or at home with anyone. I'm fortunate to work with a great company here at Embrey, and my job is to pay it forward. To the reference that you made earlier, the company's taking great care of me, and so my job is to obviously take great care of my teams as well, and I appreciate that. And I think for people to really recognize how important your family and friends are to your mental health and to your job, to really focus on that as we go forward here in 2022.
Well, Tony, this was a real pleasure. I feel very honored to have you on a show. I've been following you for a while. I love your content. I think we share. We have a lot of things in common. I appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts with me and with the audience. I hope to get you back soon for a second episode. Again, everybody, thank you for watching us. I'm Adrian Danila, your host. This is Multifamily Chronicles. I hope to see you coming back again soon. Have a great one.